Alright, deciding to go out for another run with this deck because I really enjoyed it last time. Pir and Toothy. We're up against Nekusar, Karametra, God of the Harvests, and the Locust Guard. We have a couple of lands in hand and some ramp, so we are going to keep that. And another counter spell, so we definitely have some control in the early game. I think it is a tropical island into hardened scales, and that should start us off nicely. Obviously we're going to go for, well, not so much obviously, but I am intending to go for the Nature's Law on turn 2. Don't think we need to hold up counter spells too early in the game. I wanted to play this deck again because I really enjoyed it the first time I played it, and I imagine it is going to see some significant changes once War of the Spark comes out. So I want to play it now in its current iteration, and then we can maybe have a look at changing some things up in the deck. Pir Imaginative Rascal is a 3-mana 1/1 in green. If one or more counters would be put on a permanent our team controls, that many +1 of each of those types of counters are put onto it instead. And we will go over Toothy in a second. Let's get down a tapped breeding pool with Nature's Law. And did Karametra miss a land drop? Wow. I wonder if they click through their turn. I'll check the chat in a minute and we'll see if they click through the turn or not. Well, they haven't said anything, so they've kept a non-lander. It's one thing to keep a 1-lander, but having 0 lands in hand is, well, there's almost no excuse for that, really. Toothy Imaginary Friend is a 4-mana mono blue commander, a 1/1, and whenever you draw a card, put that many plus counters on it, and when it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card per plus counter that was on it. So it's really difficult to deal with. You almost have to pacify or use Lignify, Song of the Dryad, something like that. Imprisoned in the Moon would work. But other than that, if you bounce it, exile it, destroy it, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards. And speaking of drawing a lot of cards, the Locust Guard is a 6-mana Izzet commander, a 4/4 flyer. Whenever you draw a card, you put a 1/1 Izzet insect with haste and flying into play. For 4 mana you can loot, and when it dies it returns to your hand at the next end step. Karametra is still missing lands. That is a really strange state of affairs that our opponent's in there. I think we're going to go for Toothy here, because I'm not too keen on getting down the Growing Rights of Itlimoc. So let's get down our Toothy, and the partner will trigger, but we actually can't find Pir in our library because it is in the command zone. Well, I imagine Karametra will be scooping sometime soon, but that is 5 mana for a Celestia commander. A 6/7 indestructible. It needs devotion to Celestia of 7 or greater to become a creature. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. And here's hoping our opponent gets into a land tax or a Weathered Wayfarer sometime soon. Nekusar the Mindrazer is a 5-mana Grixis commander, a 2/4 that draws everyone an additional card at the beginning of their upkeep, and whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar deals 1 damage to that player. So lots of wheel effects and forced draw in Nekusar, which might punish the Locust Guard more than it punishes us. Our opponent's going to have to be careful with wheel effects once the Locust God is in play. We draw a card at the beginning of our turn, so in comes a plus counter for Toothy, and actually 2 plus counters thanks to the hardened scales. Now we can go for Astral Cornucopia and hold up counter magic because I'm worried about the Locust God coming in. I'd rather get this down with Pir in play, because that would put another charge counter on it, but we'll just play it like this and go in at... Yep, that's the Locust God. We'll go in at that player. Yep, we'll go in at that player and hold up our mana drain and counter spell. I'd actually will our opponent to get down the Locust Guard, actually, because if we can get 6 free mana from a mana drain, that would mean probably doubling Season and Pir at the very least. But they may just be holding up counter magic of their own. They only have 5 mana anyway, so they can't get down their Locust Guard just yet. And a high ground, each creature you control can block an additional creature each combat. Well, they might as well cast that because they've got nothing else going on apparently. And they'd only have to discard at the end of the turn anyway. It's actually quite a good card for 1 mana, I've never seen that one before. Oh, Vampire Nighthawk. It's not the end of the world, a Vampire Nighthawk, because we don't care about Toothy leaving play necessarily. It will cantrip a million times. And then Swiftfoot Boots going on to the Vampire Nighthawk as well. That's actually a little bit of a strange card to see in Nekusar. Yeah, the 3 mana count is stacked in Nekusar, and Vampire Nighthawk isn't typically a card that you see in that deck. Okay, Cyclonic Rift is pretty good. I think getting down Pir is a good idea at this point. We'll tap down the artifact in order to do it, because that is more likely to die than most other things. And we'll see if the Locust Guard is holding up counter magic for us. They let Pir in, and we're obviously not going to search our library. If we ever wanted to shuffle our library, we could actually search our library for Toothy or Pir. Nothing says that we have to find anything in our library. Return a target creature to its owner's hand. Well, we're going to draw a bunch of cards with that, so yeah, I think we just allow that to happen. Okay, that's a bunch of lands. Garruk Wildspeaker is going to come in with more than 3 counters on it. And luckily for our opponents, the limit break isn't really relevant yet. Yeah, let's just pass like that. I don't know what we're going to discard. We need to get rid of 4 cards here. Yeah, that's actually pretty difficult. Let's get rid of a forest. I want to keep Garruk. Get rid of the Growing Rights. Deep Glow Skate I really don't want to get rid of, but it's too early in the game for Deep Glow Skate to be relevant. And we'll just get rid of another land and hope that we draw into some more. 4 cards in the Locust Guard's hand. And I think they just played a land there, didn't they? Yep, there's Locust Guard. And here is Mana Drain for that. Let's see if they've got free counter magic. They do not. So that's 6 free mana for us next turn. Now then, what do we want to do with that 6 free mana? Still no lands for Karametra. I mean, kudos to them for sticking it out, but why on earth they kept a hand with no lands in it is beyond me. But Dukaborg is pointed towards probably us, because we have a better graveyard than anyone else, I think. Oh no. Going after Karametra, and that might actually be wise if there's some kind of... Yeah, looks like there might be some kind of reanimator strategy going on there. Well, it definitely looks like Angel Tribal. And then a Gem of Becoming coming down for Nekusar, so they are not struggling on mana. And we get our 6 mana from the Mana Drain. So I think now is definitely the time to get Doubling Season into play. And then we'll go for green and green. We'll play a land, get down the Garruk Wildspeaker. That comes in with 8 loyalty. We will untap our 2 dual lands. And unfortunately, we still can't get down Toothy and hold up counter magic. So I think we're just going to have to leave it at that. Or do we? How likely is it that our opponent gets down Locust Guard next turn? I don't think it's very likely at all, is it? They could get down Ancient Tomb or Mana Crypt. Let's just go for it now. And Toothy is going to get really big really quickly if he sticks around, because we have Pir, Hardened Scales and Doubling Season. So per card draw, what will that be? It's an additional couple of counters from the Hardened Scales and Pir. So that will be 3 counters per card draw, which will be doubled to 6. I think we get 6 plus counters per card draw with Toothy. Okay, getting down a reflecting pool, the Locust Guard is, but they're not doing anything else. They still have 4 cards in hand, so they might be able to disrupt what we're doing. That is 2, 4, 6, 7 mana. And that is Cyclonic Rift mana. And if I know anything about blue players, if they need a Cyclonic Rift, then they typically have one. And we're currently proof of that. And is Karametra seriously still not making land drops? Yeah, apologies for any of you that have come along to see a Karametra build. I've said it a few times already, but I'll say it again. I don't know what they were doing keeping hold of a 0 land hand. And sacking the Gem of Becoming, Nekusar. Let's search your library for an island, a swamp and a mountain. And they go into your hand, so they have their land drops sorted for the next 3 turns. Okay, Nivik's Guild Mage for Nekusar. That is 3 mana, draw and discard. And then 4 mana, copies an instant or sorcery. Again, not necessarily something that you'd see in Nekusar. Now let's see how many counters this is. I work it out as 6, but I'm not necessarily correct with this. Yep, that's right. So Toothy goes straight up to a 7/7. What do we want to do here? Incubation Druid. I can't remember what this does. Tap and add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. If it has a plus counter on it, add 3 of that type instead. And we can easily afford the adapt cost. So let's get down a land and we'll get down the Incubation Druid. And then I think we need to minus down Garrick and get ourselves into a couple of beast tokens. We'll get a couple of beast tokens thanks to the doubling season. Doubles the number of counters and tokens that we produce. And now we can hold up Counterspell. And if we decide not to counter anything, I have a feeling we're going to want to counter the Locust Guard next turn. But if we don't, then we can adapt. I think we can do it instant speed. Yeah, there's no timing restrictions on that, so we'll just go in at the Locust Guard here and see if they have another bounce effect. Yep, they're just letting it through. They're up to 10 commander damage. Toothy will be a 13/13 next turn, which puts the Locust Guard on commander damage. Now let's see what they're going for here at instant speed. X damage to each creature without flying and each planeswalker. Well, our Toothy sticks around. We lose the Incubation Druid, unfortunately, but we have a decent amount of mana still. Yeah, I think we just leave that alone. They might have been trying to bait a counter spell out of us there. And they make a land drop, so let's see if they... No, they're just going for Curse of the Swine. We could take advantage of the card draw here. What does Toothy go up to next turn? Now that is a couple of counters doubled, and that makes 4 counters, which makes him an 11/11. So that's still commander damage. Our opponent has 2 cards left in hand. Let's just counter that and hope that we can get them out of the game next turn. A second land drop for Karametra. Let's see if they have a Signet. Nope, they have a Dawn of Hope. And no means of gaining life, so I don't think that is going to be of any use to them whatsoever. Okay, I thought Nekusar was countering with the Supreme Will there, but they're not. They're just going for card draw with Supreme Will, so that Dawn of Hope will hit the battlefield. Now, we just have to hope that Nekusar doesn't feel so threatened that they would use spot removal on Toothy, because we really want to get rid of this Locust Guard player. I think they're going to be a threat, and hopefully we've shown Nekusar that we're really just after getting rid of Locust Guard. It's not the worst thing if they destroy Toothy, because we'll obviously refill our hand. Well, they're not doing anything to us, so I think this is 4 counters going on Toothy now. If Magic the Gathering is good for anything, it's mental arithmetic. Oh, and here we go. Cyclonic Rift. Well, we'll draw cards at least. not as many cards as we would have done had that have resolved, but that's exactly why our opponent was holding up the Cyclonic Rift like that. Well, we can get down... How much does the Locust Guard cost now? I think it's 8, and they have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. We could strip mine them, but I think the thing to do here might be ramp. Let's go for 3 visits, and then the Sky Shroud Claim, and then we can hold up Evacuation if we want to. Yeah, I think I want to save Evacuation for if our opponent gets a lot of insects into the air. Let's just concentrate on ramping this turn. We'll get a couple of islands here. Okay, now do we want to strip mine the Locust Guard? They've only got 1 card in hand, so they might need to just rip a land off the top. Yeah, I think we go for that actually. Let's untap a couple of lands. The other play would be to get down an island and go for Cyclonic Rift to bounce the Locust Guard, but then it would only cost 6 to cast it again. Yeah, I think we just go for Sakura Tribe Elder for a little bit more ramp, then strip mine our opponent, and we'll get rid of that man land. Yeah, that's a 1-4 that can become a 4-1, and I think we just leave it there. Now, let's see if they make a land drop here. They do, but it's a tap land, so I think that was a good play last turn. It was a little bit risky, but they have time because we decided not to go for Toothy last turn. I mostly decided on that because we have Rift in hand. Oh, and they've decided to scoop it. That is a strange decision. If we had a big Toothy in play and they assumed that it was going in at them, which it would be, then fair enough. But no, they've just decided to scoop without saying anything, so it's down to the strange Nekusar deck and the very unlucky Karametra opponent. A 3rd white land. Let's hope that there's a Chromatic Lantern or something like that in their hand. Doesn't seem as though they're doing anything, so it's straight over to Nekusar. And I'm assuming that Nekusar is going to be much more likely to focus in on us now. Okay, Viceling is 4 mana for a 2-2. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of cards in their hand minus 4. So that could really hurt us because we don't have a lot of life gain in this deck. I don't know if we have any actually. Yeah, we potentially are going to have a lot of cards in hand. So I think the next one to focus in on is certainly Nekusar. And let's sack the Tribe Elder at the end of Nekusar's turn. Grab ourselves another island, and let's get going with our own turn. We will be dealt 1 damage here because we have 1 more card than 4 in hand. Venser Shaper Savant is not a bad card to draw into. I think Pir I'd quite like to go for. And it's noteworthy as well that if our opponent decided to wheel, then we could actually put one of our commanders, like Toothy in this instance, we could actually shuffle it into our library and then fetch it back with Pir if we get to recast him. And that would mean that we'd have a Toothy in hand without any command attacks. But we're not going to make much use of a play like that anytime soon, I don't think. It's just noteworthy that that's something we could go for. Let's see if Karametra wants to get a shuffle here by searching for a Pir. Never know, they might have a Pir in the deck. I don't know if we want to untap with Garrick here to hold up Evacuation. I think we'll just keep up Venser and Cyclonic Rift, which means we get to minus down here and get ourselves a couple of beasts. Viceling is going to deal 2 damage to Karametra here, the first damage that Karametra has been dealt this entire game. And they have not windmill slammed a green mana, so I assume they haven't drawn into it. How annoyed would our opponent be if we cast Venser at the end of Nekusar's turn and bounce one of their planes? Would be completely pointless, of course, but the troll in me really wants to do something like that. Perhaps we're seeing the commander here. Now, do we want to Venser that I think I'd actually like the additional card draw because it makes Toothy really big. And we can always bounce it later with Venser. So we'll allow that. We will be dealt no damage by the Viceling, because we only have 4 cards in hand. Viceling only cares about cards that you have in your hand above 4. Spike Weaver is really good if we start getting a lot of combat damage dealt to us. Yes, it is just combat damage that it cares about. We draw an additional card with Nekusar, which will make Toothy really, really big. We might be able to get Karametra out of the game at this point. I'm not sure how big Toothy will be here. Alright, Toothy's a 13. We'll get down an island. And why don't we go for Cyclonic Rift and swing in at our opponent with a 13/13 Toothy. That sounds like a pretty good idea. Alright, we'll go in at Nekusar with a 13/13 Toothy. Try and put them on commander damage next turn, and then these two can go in at Karametra. We'll just hold back the Toothy, the Pir, not Toothy. Hopefully the 1 damage won't be relevant at any point in the game. Okay, looks like Nekusar is going to try and use some kind of... Alright, that is... loses all abilities and a 0/2. I mean, Toothy is still going to be an 11/14, is that? Yeah, so I don't really think that actually matters apart from with the beasts, because the +1/+1 counters don't care. I wonder, it must still be commander damage because the game still sees that this is our commander. So that doesn't do what our opponent was hoping it was going to do, I don't think. And there we go, that is still 12 commander damage onto our opponent, and we still have Venser in hand. Now, do we want to Spike Weaver and hold up? I think the best thing to do here is untap some lands. So now we still have Evacuation and Venser. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Don't think we're going to be using Evacuation, but just in case. Out comes the high ground again. That's a 4th land for our opponent. They're really, really mana screwed this game. They get down their permanents again, but obviously they've just got a bunch of green spells in hand. Now, I'm hoping that our opponent is going to cast the Vampire Nighthawk last, so that if we bounce it back to the hand with Venser, then they're not going to be able to recast it. We'll just have to see. They're still going to be able to chump block with a creature. And what is this thing? Oh, that freezes our... Yeah, they've frozen our Toothy anyway. That is a pretty powerful land, actually. I've never seen that one before from the new Zendikar set. Worth knowing about. Okay, Swiftfoot Boots. Now let's see if they go for Nekusar or Vampire Nighthawk. Looks like they're going for Nekusar. Yeah, I actually don't feel the need to counter that. Like I said before, we can bounce it with Venser anyway. And do they want to swing in at Garrick? I think I'll just let it through if they do. I don't think it's a wise move for them to swing in with the Nekusar though. Avenger of Zendikar. Now can we get into a land here? We are going to get a boatload of tokens and plus counters if that occurs, but no, Walking Ballista is... yeah, that's really good as well. I think we have to do some more maths here. How much mana do we have? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which means this will come in as a 7, 7. It will get another counter there, so an 8 and 9, 9. Doubled up is an 18, 18. So we can't quite deal with anything there. I think it's still worth having Walking Ballista in play though, because we can ping the Nighthawk out of the sky. Yeah, let's go for Walking Ballista. How much mana do we want to put into this? Yeah, I think that's okay. We'll make it a 3/3. It'll enter as a 10/10, I think, here, because it gets an extra couple of counters from Hardened Scales and Pir, and then 5 doubled is obviously 10. We can pay 4 to add another counter to this, and then remove 1 to ping something, which means we can deal with the Vampire Nighthawk. Then Spike Weaver, and we'll untap with Garrick. Oh, we have Venser mana. Yeah, but I'd rather have extra mana to use the Spike Weaver if we need to. So we'll untap with Garrick, I think. And then any spare mana that we might have, we can dump into the Walking Ballista. Spike Weaver enters as a 10/10 as well. Untap a couple of islands here. And then our beast tokens can go in at the mono white player. Now I think Spike Weaver can actually move counters around, can't it? Let me just pass over to my opponent and we'll have a look at that. Yeah, 2 mana, remove a plus counter from this. We could put it on Spike Weaver, that saves putting 4 mana into the Walking Ballista. Endless Horizons, does that get planes? Any number of planes cards. Well, here's hoping that our opponent has Savannah and Temple Garden in the deck. This might be their path towards getting a green mana in play, but they'll only be able to get the card at the beginning of their upkeep. Okay, that's a bunch of basic planes, and don't tell me they don't have any dual lands. Oh wow, they don't have Temple Garden or Savannah, or any of the other. I think there's a couple of other cheap. In fact, I know there are. There's the land that needs to see a couple of basics in order to come in untapped. That's a plains and a forest, and then there's the cycle land as well. So it's not like it's out of reach monetarily for our opponent. Okay, let's see what Nekusar has in store for us. A little trick that we did last time on the channel is you can remove a plus counter from this for 2, as we've already been over, and put a plus counter on a target creature. If we were to remove 2 from this and put the counter onto another creature, it would in fact get way more than just 1 counter thanks to Pir, Hardened Scales and Doubling Season. So we're actually paying 2 mana to move 1 counter from this and dump a boatload onto another creature. So that is a good combat trick for us to bear in mind. Now that looks like Rift mana to me. Are we about to see the 3rd Cyclonic Rift of the game? Well, we can dump some counters onto our commander. We're still going to hold up the 4 mana in case our opponent Cyclonic Rifts in response to us tapping out. We want to hold up Venser for the Rift. Oh, and I've removed the wrong... I've activated the wrong ability there somehow. Okay, scratch that then. We're not going to bother with that. That was a mistake on my part. Not going to take any damage from Viceling. Oh, and we've got an Arcane Denial as well, which is really good. And we have a land for the Avenger of Zendikar. So let's go for... We'll remove a counter and get rid of this thing because it's a blocker. And if I activate the correct ability, we can still put a bunch of plus counters onto Walking Ballista. We'll get down Venser, and we will bounce that Swiftfoot Boots. We want to get rid of Swiftfoot Boots because it gives Nekusar hexproof, and we want to be able to ping that out of the way. And let's see if it's Rift. Yep, it certainly is. So let's go for Arcane Denial on that. That was a great draw for us. We didn't have to keep Venser in hand in order to get rid of Rift, thanks to us drawing into that Arcane Denial. And now we can ping Nekusar to death with our Walking Ballista. And then can we get rid of both players here? Let's see. We remove a counter from the Spike Weaver. That jumps all the way up to a 10/10. That's 18. Oh, and then we can do this with Garrick. Yeah, and our opponent sees that we're trying to take out both players here. I won't bother doing the maths because... Well, let's just swing straight in at the only player that's left in that case. I was going for the limit break on Garrick there to give everything +3/+3, and I imagine we could have suited up more creatures thanks to Spike Weaver. And props to Karametra for sticking it out. They might have a Swords or a Path to Exile here. A Condemn. I mean, there's a few single white removal cards. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was just trying to end the game quickly, but I should have swung in with everything there. Because we still could have drawn the game to a close, I think. Okay, it looks like Karametra has been very patient the entire game, and then when it comes time to take in the final blow, they don't seem to be all that keen on that. So I'm going to leave it for a few minutes and see if maybe they've gone AFK or something like that. I'll wait and see if they come back, but I think this is a victory for us. Okay, our opponent has decided to vanish after having the patience to play that entire game out. Yeah, very petty of our opponent. I don't really know why people do this. I think it's just a means of trying to, I don't know, save face. They don't want to see the you lose screen or something like that. I really don't know why people do this. But anyway, that was a win for us in Pir Toothy. Bit of a strange one in that Karametra never really got going. We got to take out the other two players though, and we got to show off some of the shenanigans with +1/+1 counters that you can get going now. Really like playing this deck, and I hope that you all enjoy watching it. I know you like multiplayer content, so I need to try and get some more of that going for all of you. Anyway, like I say, hope you all enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.